Welcome to the Hendo Audio Public Art Tour. This episode features the Coca-Cola mural at 303 North Main Street, which faces south overlooking 3rd Avenue West. One might think that a mural advertising America's favorite soft drink is out of place in the Hendo Art Tour. But there is an interesting history behind these murals that the Coca-Cola company commissioned at the turn of the 20th century. It is estimated that they installed over 16,000 of these murals all over the United States, and especially in the South, beginning in the 1890s. The artists who painted them were some of the most talented artists in the country, and the artists who have continued to restore and maintain them over the ensuing decades are second to none. Hendersonville's buildings feature 3 of them. Over time, many of these vibrant works became weathered and faded. Because of that, they became known as ghost murals. The term ghost refers to their aged appearance, which adds to their nostalgic charm. The oldest one was painted on the side of the Justus Pharmacy building in 1907 to advertise the soda fountain inside, which of course served Coca-Cola. The building was built in 1900 by Dr. William Hicks Justus to operate his pharmacy. The building still houses a soda fountain, now under the name of Mike's on Main. The soda shop has kept some of the original items from the Justus Pharmacy, such as the original cash register and glass apothecary jars. The mural has been maintained since it was originally painted on the side of the building, making it the oldest Coke mural in town. The mural was most recently refurbished by sign painter and artist Andy Thompson, who painted his first sign for Coca-Cola in 1958. Andy Thompson left an indelible mark on the world of Coca-Cola advertising, working with the iconic brand for well over 50 years before his death in 2017. Thompson's journey with Coca-Cola began right out of high school, working with Coca-Cola Consolidated, the bottler and distributor for the company located in Charlotte. Thompson painted over 50 murals for Coke in his 30 years as an employee. After his retirement, he started his own sign painting business, and when the company decided to begin to restore the historic murals, they contracted with him to do the restoration work for many of them, including the first one they restored in Concord, North Carolina. He worked on so many that toward the end of his career, he could not say exactly how many he had worked on. Since Andy Thompson is no longer here to talk about his work on the murals, we tracked down his granddaughter, Amber Thompson, to tell us about her grandfather's work. Amber is following in Andy's footsteps with her own sign and mural painting business. Andy began to train her to restore these murals just a year before he died. But she learned enough from him that Coca-Cola is commissioning her to do the restoration work now. Amber will tell us about the history of the Coca-Cola murals, her grandfather's work on them, and why they are so greatly valued in the communities where they were painted. She starts with how her grandfather became a Coca-Cola mural painter.
It was probably in the 60s. He was straight out of high school and became a sign painter there, just like day one. Learned how to do it on the job there and was there for quite a while until the sign shops were shifting away from hand-painted signs. Vinyl became a thing and stuff dissolved the sign shop that they had there. So after that, he started with his own sign business, signs and banners, and he lettered race cars and lettered fire trucks and all kinds of cool things, did signage for the stadiums here and things like that back in the day. So he did that the rest of his career, worked for himself, literally till the end. And then Coca-Cola started having like a resurgence of the ghost signs that were all withering away. They wanted to start revamping them. The first one was in Concord, North Carolina, the first one that kind of started the trend a little bit. And then after that, they started picking up on like, oh, we want to restore this one, we want to restore this one, and had him do that in his, quote, retirement, working for himself. He would pick up a couple of those here and there and restore for them. The ghosting is more because like they're fading away. They were painted decades and decades ago, and now they're fading. Some are not even visible. Some are the color is faded. Some they've been painted over, and you see different layers of stuff. Those are really cool. Now they're being restored. So I would consider it called a ghost mural more before it's restored. Once it's restored, it's like that thing's just brand new again. But they still kind of get called that. They're a form of advertising for Coca-Cola. I mean, obviously, tons of other companies use these as well. I mean, that was the main form of advertising then, like billboards. So you'd paint on the side of a building. So it's an ad for Coke. They would send out these pattern books of like, here are templated designs for this year or this decade or whatever it was. They would template them out. So all the sign painters were given the same stuff and the same reference material and the same rules for your dimensions and your border thickness and all these kinds of things, spacing. So to try to keep it consistent, even though it's going out to all these different places and all these different painters. But there's options in each of them. Like if you have a vertical wall versus a horizontal wall, they'll like take the same basic design and then show you how you would do it. Growing up and being at their house, and I knew that he was a sign painter for Coca-Cola. That was in his earlier years, probably before I was born. And then around the time I was born, he ended up running his own sign business. He still would like contract for Coca-Cola, but he had his own sign banner painting business. So he was doing that when we would be over there on those days. And it never really like occurred to me that this was like a cool thing to be doing. Even through high school, I don't remember like it clicking that like, oh, this is really neat. He's working for Coca-Cola. This is huge. I don't know. I never made that connection. So when he asked me to go after school, I mean, it was really flattering. He knew I was always good at painting and art, and then he kind of just waited until after college to have me along. And I think he really enjoyed having me there. He definitely wished that we had gotten into it sooner. There's so much more I could have learned from him. Obviously, we didn't know that he'd be leaving us. There's really kind of one of two ways it usually goes, at least in my experience. If the sign is in okay shape, it's just faded a little bit, we'll just kind of give it a fresh coat. And I believe that's what my grandfather did for your large one in Hendersonville as well. It was still there and very visible, and you knew what was there. It just was so faded. So you just layer it up again. And then on the flip side, there are ones that have been painted over, are just crumbling. The flakiness is just awful. Brick is deteriorating. And those, you scrape a little bit, prep the wall and all that, but then prime straight over those to give you a fresh canvas. And before all that, I'll take all my measurements and everything of how the sign used to be, lots of photo evidence, those kinds of things, to try to put it back as accurately as I can. If it's completely gone, we'll try to find references from those towns or other archives or things like that to see if we can find a photograph of what it did used to look like and then recreate that to the best of our ability. I just did one in Washington, North Carolina last year, and we couldn't find any photo of it. We could see where the logo was, but everything else, it had been painted over probably 5 times. So I just made best guess on that one and tried to make it as historically, or assume the historical, nature of that sign the best we could. There's just no way of knowing. So those you prime over, and then I will make patterns here at home using a projector. I'll project it on my paper to scale, make a pattern out of that I'll then use on the wall to transfer the design, and then paint that up to the finished product. They're so old. Like it's a snapshot of history, and for Coca-Cola to have been so prevalent then and now. Obviously, Coca-Cola specifically, there's ghost signs abundant of all kinds of brands, but we're 100 or more years later, and Coca-Cola is still very present in all of our lives. So I think that's kind of cool that like they've withstood, but also the signs are kind of withstanding. I'm trying to bring them back a little bit. But a lot of these signs are in really tiny towns that have also kind of been ghosted in a way. And they're having their own revitalizations. It's a huge movement right now by these smaller towns. Once the sign gets painted, people start talking about it, gets a little traction. And I think that's what happened with that original Concord sign I mentioned that my grandfather restored. It's like people started talking about it. They all loved it. They love that they brightened up this otherwise kind of an eyesore type thing and made it new and fresh again. If there's something to be proud of in their little town, or like something to talk about, some art to see or photograph, I think they're just really appreciated generally by the locals.
We hope you've enjoyed seeing and hearing about the Coca-Cola Ghost Murals and the work by Andy Thompson and his granddaughter Amber Thompson in restoring them. To hear more in-depth details about the Hendersonville murals, visit dotellpodcast.com and look for the episodes featuring each of them. Thanks so much to our sponsor, the Henderson County Tourism Development Authority, based in Hendersonville, North Carolina. For more info, check out their website at visithendersonvillenc.org. Thanks also to the nonprofit STEEP Incorporated, STEAP, which stands for Storytelling, Education, and Arts Programs. Learn more about STEEP at steep.net. Thanks for venturing on the Hendersonville Audio Public Art Tour. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and tell all your friends and family about it.